BBC News.
Amazing stuff. Now, as you can see, Jozef Youssef, Michelin star chef turned expert in gastrophysics, is with me. He has travelled the world to understand more of how our senses impact our food experiences. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. Now, forgive me, because till this morning, I didn't even know what gastrophysics was, but tell me more about putting together food and science and the difference that can actually make.
Sure. Well, gastrophysics is really focused on the psychology of how we dine and how we approach food, our relationship with food. So it's really looking at kind of psychology and trying to understand how differences in lighting, in temperature, in the cutlery, as you saw there, all the different factors outside of just what's on the plate, how that impacts your perception of flavour.
Perception or actual flavour, because I know you were telling my producer that things like noise has an impact about what something actually tastes like. So people on a plane, really?
Most definitely. So researchers out there would suggest that when an aeroplane is in full flight, about 35,000 feet, the sound of the engine produces about 70 decibels. Now, you're not exposed to that because you're in the cabin, but nonetheless, that has an impact on your ability to perceive saltiness and sweetness. But sound, so that it'll lower your ability.
Therefore, you have to adapt your recipes.
Exactly. And this is why some foods that we get served on commercial planes might taste great down at ground level, but once you're up there with all the other kind of in that environment, it doesn't work quite the same.
And it's the same with vision. I mean, it's become an extraordinarily popular thing, people posting images of food. It's everywhere. I mean, I was baffled by that, but I suspect you would understand that.
Yes, totally. And it's funny because we post food in a very unnatural way, where now when you look at Instagram, popular social media, they'll take the photos from above, and we're looking at food in a different perspective than what we're used to. And
that's exactly what we're seeing on the screen. We were seeing that report, though, a little earlier, in terms of utensils and cutlery. I mean, for centuries, we've moved away from eating with our hands to develop all this cutlery. Now, somehow, people like you are rewinding and moving us backwards. Does that make any real sense?
Well, arguably, some people say food tastes better when you eat it with the hands. So you've got restaurants all over the world now that are more experimental, top-end restaurants that are removing cutlery from the menu altogether. Kitchen Theory, we've removed forks altogether, so no forks on the menu. It makes you more mindful. So if I give you a plate of food, you could probably consume that plate with a knife and fork as we're having a chat. The moment I give you a slightly different piece of cutlery or something you're unfamiliar with, it makes you much more mindful of what you're doing and how you're interacting with the food. And chances are you'll find the food more satiating because you're more focused on the act of eating, and hopefully you'll find it tastes better or it's more enjoyable as a process.
That's interesting, and I am going to put it to the test, because here on the desk I've got one of these new spoons and some dangerous-looking yoghurt. I was rather baffled, actually, first of all, to see which end I was supposed to use, but you are supposed to use this end, and I mean, I have no idea how you would even attempt to have soup with this, but...
Well, you wouldn't have soup with a fork.
I suppose so. Yeah. But now, the makers of this claim and boast that it enhances the taste. Yoghurt, for example, would be sweeter.
Perhaps the surface area of it, perhaps the roundedness in your mouth makes it taste sweeter. It's slightly rounded, more kind of smooth texture, and we associate that more with sweetness. So when you ask, if you give people a piece of silk and ask them to use food-related words, they'll say things like creamy, fatty, rich. Give them a piece of sandpaper and it becomes salty, bitter, citrus, acidic.
You know, it's a beautiful thing, but I didn't notice much of a difference. I mean, it's an interesting area, though, the gastrophysics. It is creeping in. You're seeing it now in restaurants and all around us, aren't you?
Definitely, in terms of even things like music selection, in terms of the lighting, in terms of... we're now looking at restaurant experiences as experiences rather than just kind of going for a bit of food.
Well, Joseph, we have run out of time, and I've got through this without ruining my tie. So thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
And taking time to explain that to us. Thank you so much for your